before shockingly losing his life in a tragic snowmobile accident. Professional thrill seeker and rally car driver Ken Block, he was born on November 21st, 1967 in Long Beach, California. Now, shortly thereafter, he and his family, they moved to Escondido, California, where he spent his childhood growing up on an avocado grove. Now, little did his parents know that by moving their son into that environment in the early 80s, they were depositing him into the heart of the soon-to-be booming skateboarding scene. Now, when speaking about his past with Matt Anderson at the Henry Ford Museum in 2019, fantastic place by the way, just was there recently, Ken, he told those gathered around, "My dad had his own business that had to do with the printed circuit board industry, so I grew up going to Dodgers games, skateboarding, riding BMX bikes. I tried a lot of team sports, but ended up liking more individual type sports, so I ended up being a skateboarder." Now, after a brief attempt in his early adult life to become a professional snowboarder, Ken, he then returned to Southern California and dedicated himself to something else entirely. That was his passion for design. Now, while attending San Diego Community College, Ken met his friend and future business partner, Damon Way, and the two, they would go on to form several clothing brands, including Droors Clothing in 1994. Now, to do this, they scraped together by investing $10,000 each.
Some courses he was taking in graphic arts, silk screening, logo development, that type of stuff. Fate would have it, I actually ended up being very good at it.
Now, working off of advice from other skateboarders, Ken designed the first DC kicks himself, and believe it or not, they were an immediate sensation. I mean, I grew up in the DC era, even my wife still wears them today. I mean, these shoes were absolutely everywhere. Now, retail demand, it would reach such heights that they were instantly placed on back order. Now, by 1995, the very next year, the entire brand was generating almost $7 million in annual revenue. 7 years later, and DC was still selling like hotcakes. It was now in 52 countries and collecting almost $250 million in sales. Then in March of 2004, Ken and Damon, they would sell the company to Quicksilver for a price reported by the New York Times at $113 million in cash, as well as 1.6 million restricted shares of stock. So why did Ken decide to sell the company? According to him, both he and Damon, they were growing tired of being in the business and they were itching to move on to try other things, which meant that as Ken Block entered into his 30s, he turned his attention towards motorsports. Flush with cash from the DC sale, Ken, he drove into his passion for rally cars and his need for speed with utter exhilaration. Now, he knew that since he was already in his 30s, he had a lot of lost time, but he still expected himself to become the absolute best driver he could be.
Well, the first time I got in a race car, I absolutely loved it, and it was everything I dreamed about as a kid, driving for the first time.
Now, Ken's first actual rally took place at Canada's 2004 Rally of the Tall Pines, and by the following year, he was running a full schedule in his Subaru WRX STI. Now, 2 years later, in 2006, he won his first race at the rally in the 100 Ace Wood. Flash forward to 2010, and Ken had won that particular event 5 straight times, and over the next 17 seasons, Ken would win 23 rallying events at the national level. And by the time 2022 rolled around, Block and his co-driver Alex Glasmino, they had won 4 events in their WRC spec Hyundai i20. Now, during their final event at the Lake Superior Performance Rally, the two men took home the championship. And by this point, Ken, he was 55 years old.
Alex and I have won the event 3 times, but I hate it because it's a site of one of our worst crashes in my career.
Now, following that successful performance, Ken returned to Los Angeles to have some fun, something his fans might know better as hooning. Is it honing? I think it's hooning. Now, Ken, he essentially defined that term, and at its core, hooning is the art of pursuing thrills with the use of rally driving techniques outside of the usual competitive events. It's more or less a version of controlled chaos that's designed to look wildly out of control. In November of 2006, Ken would appear on a television series known as Stunt Junkies over on the Discovery Channel, where he launched his WRX STI into the air from a dirt ramp, and he sent it soaring a whopping 171 feet. It landed safely on another dirt ramp before he drove off. Now, that was the public's first taste of hooning, and those who witnessed it were soon clamoring for more. Now, Ken would eventually earn himself the title of the King of the Hoons from 0 to 60 magazine after he released his first first Gymkhana video over on YouTube, a new series that involved fast cars, clouds of tire smoke, iconic locations, and of course, daring stunts. Now, soon enough, Kenny had yet another successful venture on his hand. As the series, it exploded on popularity. All of a sudden, he was a YouTuber. Now, this would lead to a number of other successful new businesses, including the launch of Hoonigan, Ken's official brand that would go on to sell everything from clothing to car parts, while also maintaining a significant presence on social media with the Hoonigan YouTube channel. Fords, Porsches, Audis, Subarus, basically every type of car you could imagine would pass through Hoonigan and wind up being turned into an exaggerated version of itself for the entertainment of millions of people who tuned into Gymkhana with each new drop to check out the latest lightning fast stunt that Ken had dreamt up. In fact, I was cruising this YouTube channel, nearly every video got over 1 million views. Yeah, people were digging it. Now, social media then became the medium Ken used the most to communicate with his fans. In fact, he was still regularly updating his audience as recently as this past Monday when he found himself at his Utah ranch having adventures in a snow-blanketed paradise. Ken's last social media post was him gushing about his 16-year-old daughter Leah and the 1985 Audi Quattro that she had constructed for her adventures in speed. Now, unfortunately, Ken, he wouldn't be there to see her pursue those desires to completion. Just hours after posting about his daughter, Ken Block was part of a horrific accident. A man whose very life had been defined by his exuberant and enthusiastic search for speed. He died in a snowmobiling accident on January 2nd, 2023. Now, authorities state that the accident happened at 2 p.m. when Ken was riding his snowmobile down a steep slope in Wasatch County, Utah. The vehicle upended and landed on top of Block. Now, he was later pronounced dead at the scene from the injuries he sustained as a result. Now, a statement released soon afterwards by Hoonigan Racing, it read in part, "Ken was a visionary, a pioneer, and an icon, and most importantly, a father and a husband." Now, having passed away at only 55 years old, Kenny left behind his wife Lucy and 3 children. Now, following this tragic occurrence, Ken's daughter Leah, she would post a moving tribute to her father on social media, stating quite clearly that she didn't just lose her father, she lost her best friend and the only person she ever looked up to. Ken's wife also posted a touching tribute to her late husband with an image of the helmet he had been wearing during the accident that claimed his life. Now, the important thing to remember in a moment like this is that the tragedy of Ken's death in no way overshadows the accomplishments of his life. Now, he proved to be an inspirational force by many all over the world, and he's left behind a legacy that will not be forgotten anytime soon. Rest in peace, Ken Block. You will be missed. And I know that wholeheartedly because having posted just one TikTok video on this, the amount of love and support, the amount of fans all over the world, pretty impactful. I mean, everyone's wearing the guy's shoes, and that's just one of 3 things he accomplished. At least. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up this video here. I have a question for you. What was the most exciting stunt or rally you ever watched Ken take part in? Place your comments down below, and I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Also, feel free to leave your condolences. I'll see you guys in another video.